the joy of like running your own business and being able to hire people is that you can work with people 100 times more talented. So me trying to spend like 5 hours making a TikTok video when someone could make it in 6 minutes, like why would I not delegate that?
Thanks for coming. I know it was a long trek for both of us, actually. But I didn't realize you were actually born not in the US. So you said Singapore, not even London. So tell me more about that. So when did you go to London? What brought you to New York?
My parents lived in Singapore for about 3 years, I think, something like that. And I was born over there. And I think I was there for maybe the first 2 years of my life. And then we moved back to the UK and lived in a couple of different places and then my parents settled just outside London, like southwest of central London. I grew up there and then went to university in central London at King's College and moved to the US afterwards.
Oh my goodness. And what brought you here?
Kind of a combination of things. One, in that I find like British culture to be quite suffocating in a lot of ways. And it was, especially for what I wanted to do and work on, like I've always loved working in startups or had big ideas or like wanted like more than what I could see in front of me at least. And it felt like New York was a place where that could be possible. And so, yeah, that was, I guess, the main reason as to why I stayed.
Yeah, I mean, I've only been to Europe a couple times. So in my opinion, it doesn't matter that much. But I did feel like when I was there was a little bit of that hustle and ambition that was missing in the normal person you would talk to. Versus here in New York, it feels like every other person has these wild dreams. They're hustling, they're running to something. And it's very energizing. It's very different.
Yeah, it's very different. And I love like visiting the UK. I mean, I've lived here for 9-ish years now. And I go back quite often to visit family and friends. But yeah, I don't know, something about New York feels right.
Yeah. So did you come here right when you graduated?
I moved about 6 months after I graduated, yeah.
Was it for a job?
Actually, my lawyers probably, I don't think they'll ever find this. I didn't have a visa when I first moved. And I was
obsessed.
And I was like, I'll figure it out. I'll see what happens. I had a job in London and I somehow convinced them that I would do it in New York. So they let me do it remote. This was like before remote was a thing. So I started doing that. And then I went and worked for Away about 6 months after I moved here. And I set up all of their like UK presence and helped with the Europe launch. And then came back to New York after doing that. And they did my visa for me.
I really do believe that the best way to get things is just like literally do it and like let the pieces fall in. And
I was like, I'll figure it out.
Yeah, I can. It's almost like a kind of survival instinct at that point kicks in. You're like, shit, I really got to figure this out.
Yeah.
Like I'm a little bit screwed.
I was like, no idea how I was going to do it. But I was like, if I'm here, then it feels as though I'm closer.
Yeah. And then I'm sure you start to be more creative of like what you can do to make it happen. Plus, you're actually living, breathing in the city. You're probably going to have access to more opportunities.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that actually led to your opportunity at Away.
Weirdly, it didn't. I met one of the co-founders actually in London through a mutual friend. And I can't remember if they'd started Away yet or if it was like maybe the first like couple of months when I met her. But yeah, we kind of kept in touch and then one thing led to another and I ended up working there.
Wow. But still, I believe it's probably more intangible of why you being in New York maybe even made it easier for them to have that conversation with you.
Definitely.
And land you in that spot. And Away is like literally such an epic company.
Yes.
So
very cool
I'm
company.
sure that was like a fabulous start to your career.
Yeah. At the time, there were only 10. No one knew about Away. There were 10 employees. So it was like 2016, 17? Yeah, 16. And I was there for the first 3 years of the business. So really where it went from like no one knowing about Diem. No, oh my God, can't talk. I was about to say no one knowing about Diem. No one knowing about Away to everyone knowing about Away. And that was very cool and rewarding.
Did you know that was going to happen?
No. I believed in the company. Like I believed in the idea. The team were amazing, super smart, super hardworking. And I just thought it was a cool thing to work on. And what actually drew me to it originally was that they had a nonprofit partnership with an organization called Peace Direct. And I'd written my thesis on gender and sexual-based violence in regions of conflict. And they worked in one of the regions that I'd like studied. And so I'd initially started talking to one of the founders about that and just like curious about it. And yeah, so that's what initially made me excited, is that sure, it's like a startup CPG, but like there was some sort of positive impact and maybe I could help work on that partnership.
Totally. I mean, in my last job, I moved from one product that I didn't love that much to another product that I thought I would love more, but I ended up having a better experience in the previous product that I didn't love as much because of the people there. Like people are everything. Yeah, and if you are aligned with them and your values are aligned with them, it like fundamentally alters your experience and also your ability to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think the majority of the first 20 employees of Away now have their own businesses. So it was like really like everyone was super like working very hard, problem solving. Yeah, it was really fun.
So what were some of the things you learned in that, you know, taking Away from 0 to 1 and bringing that to your company now?
I learned a lot about, it's really where I learned the foundations of just like brand marketing as it pertains to like growing a company. Like I'd done marketing around the blog that I had. I'd done marketing or community building at the previous role. And I'd done partnerships in relation to like influencer deals because I was being approached by lots of people to do them. But I hadn't worked on like actually building a company from 0 to 1 and everything that is required from a marketing and a partnership standpoint. So it's really where I got like a lot of my foundational training in knowing what you needed to do and how to structure deals, how to reach out to people. Yeah, it was really a lot of that. And then also just seeing the sheer like amount of work it takes to get an idea off the ground.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. Would you recommend that aspiring entrepreneurs go to an early stage startup to really build those skills before taking the leap?
I think it depends on who you are. And like for me, it was definitely the right approach. I wouldn't have known the first thing, I wouldn't have known anything about venture capital, like wouldn't have known anything about like how to scale a company, how to build a team. And I think by being in such an early stage environment where there are say like 10, 20 employees and then seeing it through to, I guess like the rare case in where you do see it through to like hundreds of employees and this sort of hyper growth moment, you just absorb stuff by osmosis that you otherwise like wouldn't have had that experience of. And I have like a lot of founder friends of mine who are younger and who went into founding a company straight off the bat. And like a lot of the questions that they often ask me, I'm like, oh, I didn't realize I learned that at Away or at the company I worked at before that.
Mm-hmm. So what actually inspired you to start Diem?
Well, the PR story is when I had to take the morning after pill for the first time and basically just was like, why is searching the internet so lonely? Why can't I find people's experiences? Why can't I discover communities when I'm searching? Why am I just being presented with WebMD? And that was the initial sort of like genesis, I think, for recognizing that search is not like one size fits all. It also lacks a lot of community validation, and that can lead to greater satisfaction with your search results. And so, yeah, the idea stemmed from there, and it started very central to like being able to search for women's health communities. And then from that initial sort of concept developed into every topic, all the taboo topics, all of the more fun topics as well as the more serious ones. So yeah, it was that was the idea. And then also just like recognizing there is this vast gender data gap and learning more about that and learning about how that impacts us every single day, and how if you build communities, you can actually capture some of that data that is lost and doesn't exist on the internet, and then provide people a way to search for it as well.
Totally. So you said that was a PR story.
The PR story that we usually tell is the morning after pill one.
What's the real story? Or what?
Well, that is part of the real story, but that's what we lead with.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So what was that moment where you actually ended up quitting your job to do this full time?
It was a culmination of things. I actually didn't start Diem after leaving Away. I did freelance work for about a year after, like freelance partnership stuff, marketing, basically needed a break. I was very burned out and took the time to do that before deciding to go headfirst into Diem, and we got into the Techstars program in 2020 in New York, and that was what really gave us money to be able to do that.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's actually really cool because Diem technically isn't your first time being an entrepreneur. You were literally doing that for a while.
Well, I did it with the blog that I had as well. I like made tens of thousands of dollars from that when I was like 19.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to dig into that now. I didn't even know that. So were you running this blog throughout your time at Away?
No.
You were doing it when you were younger?
It was when I was at university. I was studying, as I mentioned, I wrote my thesis in gender and sexual-based violence in regions of conflict, and I did war studies as a degree, and it was very intense, amazing, like super like interesting degree to study, but sort of a creative outlet was needed is probably the most succinct way of putting that. And so the blog was really that. Like I've always loved writing. I love photography, film photography, and the blog was really just for that to start with.
And it seems like it took off. How did you monetize it? Especially, I don't know what year it was when you were 19, but social media must have looked very different. 2012.
Yeah.
So yeah, social media, like what even was the internet at that point?
It was very much like people, like I was on Blogspot, and so people they went from like your blog readership to Instagram. It wasn't like the other way around. Like now everyone directs their following to external pages. It was definitely not that. So that's like that shift has been, it was definitely at the end cusp of that being a reality. Instagram obviously was like up and coming and definitely a thing at the time. But yeah, it was very interesting just seeing how that shifted, and like the creator economy has shifted over the last 10 plus years.
Do you think that it makes you a better content creator now that you've had that experience, or is being a content creator today so fundamentally different?
I hate creating content.
Okay. So to you, it's very different than writing.
Yes, very different from writing, in my opinion. I take that back. I don't hate creating content. I like writing, and that is obviously content. I hate what social media has now become in how performative it makes you have to be in order to be successful. And that just isn't me. Like, I think it's quite normal as a British person to be like, talking about myself is like uncomfortable, and being in America, it's definitely taught me to be less uncomfortable about it. But yeah, just like performing to a camera is never something I've enjoyed. I don't mind like posting stuff that I've been doing or work related things, but yeah, I don't know. I find content creation to be incredibly taxing, and I have a lot of admiration for people that can do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a content creator, you know that, and I can +1 the taxing element of it. It's hard for me to actually come to terms with like whether I love it or I hate it. I feel like it's almost both, and I do feel that's actually a green flag. Like love and hate are like very synonymous terms, and I think now we know the power of social media. It's so critical, especially for consumer companies. Like without it, it's really seems impossible to succeed as a consumer company. So I'd be curious to hear your take on how you're thinking about content for the goal, for pushing your company forward, especially if you don't love it. I know you have like a really amazing content team. So how do you balance, what parts you should give away to your team to handle versus what parts it really needs that founder POV? Yeah.
For me, I haven't found it particularly challenging to figure it out. I'm always of the opinion that if I'm not good at it, like someone else is always going to be significantly better. So me trying to spend like 5 hours making a TikTok video when someone could make it in 6 minutes, like why would I not delegate that? And I think that's true not just in content, but everything in the company. The joy of like running your own business and being able to hire people is that you can work with people who are like 10, 100 times more talented than you in their sort of area of expertise. And so for us, like, yes, we do have like content has been a big part of how we've grown the business, both social content and like static video content, as well as our newsletters. And that will continue to be the case. We've sort of started to perfect a little bit what our owned content engine looks like and what we know works, what doesn't work. But yeah, really, I mean, growth for Diem is now starting to shift more into like the product-led growth territory. Now we've hit more of a critical mass from a downloads and actual content in the app. people are now starting to share the posts they're seeing like outside of the app or with their friends or their group chats. And that's really cool to see. And that's like our next challenge, is to figure that out on like a really big scale.
Can you share some learnings on like what has worked with content for you guys versus not? I'm sure like other founders would love to like hear more about, like, maybe you have some tips as well.
Yeah. For us, so on the social side, I mean, rule of thumb with any social content is, would you save it or would you share it? If you do neither of those things, it's useless content. Like, don't create it, don't post it. And so that's like baseline from where we come to the table is like, is it shareable? Is it something you'd want to save? Because both of those indicate either it's entertaining or it's interesting and informative. And then in terms of the specifics of things that have worked for the Diem brands, which I don't know would necessarily work for anyone else, but what we've found resonate is any video content around like women's history. So where you like rewrite or like retell history a little bit of things that have been hidden or not written about, those like 9 times out of 10 go viral. And then a lot of our content around like, I don't know, like girl things or like funny experiences that we may have, or relatable experiences rather that we may have as girls, as women, that always performs very well. And
it's also validating why Diem was built, which is these conversations aren't happening. There is clearly a gap in the market on that content being shared, especially because, I mean, as a woman myself, like there's a lot of these topics I think are too taboo to talk about, or I feel personally too vulnerable to get into it or feel cringe about it. So having that stuff on the internet, even if I'm not comfortable to talk about it, I can view it. Yeah. And I can be like, okay, I'm not alone. Like, it's very validating. Always be anonymous. Yeah. Yeah. And you have a content team, so you're not making these TikToks yourself. Thank God. Well, how do you find someone like that? I feel there are so many friends of mine who have consumer companies and they're making content every single day out of survival for their company. They're just like you. They hate it. They don't think it's their superpower, but they simply just cannot find someone who's like willing to put the grit and hustle and like personal POV in a video that actually makes the video matter the way a founder would for their own company. Yeah. I don't know. I guess like because I've always worked in marketing, I kind of know what to look for perhaps. Like the two people that, so we had Tati, who was our content lead for the last 2 years, and she just left to go start a restaurant in New Mexico, so everyone needs to check her out. And then if they're in New Mexico. And then our new social lead, Genevieve, who started last month, both of them actually have theater backgrounds, and so they're very like good on camera. Like they're like Genevieve was a trained actor. Like it's very looking for like that quality, certainly in video content, is really like a green flag. The other is someone who like maybe has built their own following, no matter how big it is, but they've created content themselves somewhere else. Both Tati and Genevieve had proven that, and that was a really big green flag. That was actually one of the reasons I was hired at Away, was because I had a following and I'd shown that I could build something and dedicate myself to something. And like sort of obviously the following and the influence it has around that, if you're an early stage company, like all followers are good followers kind of thing. So yeah, I'd say just someone with like sort of a performing arts or theater background is usually always a yes. Someone who's like done it before, whether it be for them or for something else. And then the third is just like someone, like for us, like it's very easy for people to be passionate about what we're building. Like it's not a problem that only I as a founder have experienced. Like the majority of like a female population have experienced the reasons that Diem exist. And so it's not that hard to find people who are as passionate about telling that story. Oh yeah, I love that one. Like people always ask, oh, how is it so easy for you to find people who want to work for Chen-Shi? And mission. I'm like, literally mission. Like you work on something people can get behind very easily. People want to feel that fulfillment and purpose in their day to day. And if your company can bring that, like it'll be a lot easier to get talent. Yeah. So much of what you said was very underrated, by the way. I didn't even think of being comfortable on camera as a thing to look for. And like, obviously if you have previous acting experience or theater experience, like that would make sense. Yeah. Which is insane because the whole thing of social media is authenticity, right? Authenticity, whatever. Like, let's be real. But none of it's real. It's not, it's the literal act of like placing your camera in front of you, like that already puts you in a headspace of I'm being filmed, like it is now public. I struggle with it every day. Like I feel oftentimes like I get into this like very scripted mode that I'm like, wait, I'm literally not like that in person at all.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to unblock your mindset around like being open-minded about like, okay, I'm ready and available to receive that fame and like be heard.
Yeah.
And it's something that like has to be trained actually through years. And theater and acting is like so obvious when you say that. And I'm like actually a little bit mind blowing now. Like, like every time one of my friends like asks me this, like I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, I have the best advice for you now.
No, well, I think that also it's just because what you look for in a social media manager or social media lead now is very different from what it would be like 6 or 7 years ago. Like when you used to be a social media manager, like you weren't the one on camera, you were just like really good at like figuring out the algorithms and like creating beautiful content, like flat lays, static imagery. It wasn't video based at all. And so I think that like maybe, I don't know if this is the case in the examples you're using, but maybe people are often still looking for that in a social media manager. Is like they're looking at like, oh, well, where have they been a manager before? And actually that's not necessarily what makes someone good anymore. It makes them maybe a good like director of social or VP or something more senior, but the actual like content creator that's the face of your company, that's not the same skill set anymore.
And also you would have to work for a really big company. If you want like a director level role that oversees projects, like that's not going to happen on an early stage startup.
No.
So, but it's really cool to hear that you actually got your away job from actually your content experience. To me, writing is content. So like I see it like that, but I understand it's different. And a lot of the times I'll have like young new grads be like, well, I don't want to make content because I don't want to be an influencer. And it's like, you're making content to showcase your ability to stay consistent at something and like vouch for yourself. And that personal brand is really powerful because it increases your surface area for opportunities and that like credibility and trust that I think is so specifically required when you're in an interview context because they have so little information to base off of that like very risky decision of I'm going to hire this person. So what aspects of that do you look for when you're hiring, even outside of the social media management role?
I hold it like almost above anything else. Certainly at this stage of the business, like if someone has tried to start a company, if someone is interested in running their company or has worked at really early stage businesses before, that's like a bigger like green flag to me than like almost anything else. And certainly for like the first like 20 hires, 30 hires, you need people who are like solution oriented, who won't come to you with every single problem that they run into. They'll just come to you with the big ones, and who can just like figure stuff out and have that ability to, or want rather, to figure stuff out. And a lot of that spirit is like what entrepreneurs are, is just like, I'm going to figure it out like one step at a time. Like today may have been terrible, but tomorrow might be better. And so, yeah, so I, certainly at this stage of the company, I really like that gets like more points in my hiring book than a lot of other things. Certainly on the like marketing, go-to-market business, or like I don't know what the right description is, distribution side of a company. I think when you're getting into hiring, say, a like head of design or product leader or engineers, and they're the senior leaders, you obviously want them to have had lots of experience, and it can help for them to have worked at larger companies. But still them like showing that maybe they've created something or they have this fun project that they've done is something that I really appreciate.
Right. And even if you have built something or created something, you have to share it or no one's going to know.
Yeah.
And that process of sharing happens through personal branding.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious how you actually manage your personal brand, because you clearly have a massive personal brand and it's a really powerful one. You obviously understand the importance of it. For other people who want to build a personal brand, maybe it's not to start a company, maybe it's just to, be someone successful in the corporate world. How can they think about it or approach it? Especially outside of the context of like, I need to make a TikTok every single day.
Yeah. It's all about, so for me, I like don't really think about it's interesting that you say I have a good personal brand. I'm like, I don't actually like do anything each week. I think like I benefit from obviously having had a following for my entire adult life, and understanding just like what works, what doesn't work. But really, like I've created personal branding strategies for people as like freelance things over the years. And I always say, I'm like, I can put this together for you, but if you don't want to do any of it, it's useless. So you tell me what you do want to do, and then we'll create a really powerful strategy in that specific channel or that environment. Like maybe you're really good at speaking. Okay, go focus on speaking gigs. Maybe you're amazing at writing, start a Substack. Maybe you are more performative, TikTok, Reels, that's a great place for you to be. I think it's more like you don't have to do everything. It's also like show by execution. Like I think that the reason that maybe like I or our team or Diem is well respected when it comes to like a brand or a personal brand perspective is just like consistency and like actually just getting stuff done. Like you can talk about doing stuff, but if you actually do it and people like it, then the brand kind of like comes along with you.
Yeah, I like the idea of like leaning into your superpower, create content accordingly. We're all creative people. Yes. We're all artists.
Yeah.
In our hearts, but how we perform and express can be different. And you don't have to be performative if you're not performative, or like be a writer if you're not a writer, or things like that. So I like that a lot. Do you think everyone needs to have a personal brand?
I don't think that, not in the way that I think people think of the word personal or the words personal brand. Yeah. I think that people think of that as being like a following or a whatever. Like the people I look up to most and my like dream is like to be really well known for one specific thing, but no one else knows about you if they don't know about that specific thing. And I think that that's really like, if it's like the if you know kind of concept, and that really comes down to just like building something great or creating something really powerful or impactful or doing something that leads to like, I don't know, changing someone's life or changing an industry or anything in those realms. So it could be smaller than those two very large things I just suggested. But I think it's really, I don't think that everyone needs to have a following by any means. I think that it can help if you have a consumer company to at least like know how to reach people. And maybe personal branding is a way to learn that, but I don't think it's necessary. I've actually just thought of another thing, sorry. I said I don't think it's necessary. I think that female founders are expected to have personal brands more than male founders are. And whether that means I think that everyone needs a personal brand versus what an industry may say you need is different.
Yeah, societal expectations, industry expectations versus
industry
what's
expectation.
Actually real.
Exactly.
I love that you said that, because if you are exceptional in something, if you actually create something that's like genuinely changes the world in some way, impacts the field, like people are going to know about it. Yeah. There's no way people don't know about it. And really what's relevant is that people in your space know about it, because that's really what's going to open that next door for you. It's only the people in that space have the power to do that. Yeah. So yeah, focus on your craft, like focus on being really good at one thing, and what you're excited about and authentic about will become more effortless. Like you're more likely to be good at it. And then like people will find out. This is why I like people who say, oh, they only got that because of like wealth and network and all these things. Sure, very true. That does happen to people. But there's no world where you can't get things off merit or literally just like actually showing up to something every single day. And then getting better at it. And
I always find I don't know if it's fair that I find this annoying, but I find the most like irritating question is if someone's like, I really want to start a company, I don't know how. And I'm like, well, how do you think anyone else figured it out? and it's like, not that you don't ask people for advice along the way, but it's like, the first step, you can at least figure out the first step.
Also, the first step of every company is entirely different.
Exactly.
There's no roadmap or rule book.
Like pick one thing.
Just try literally anything. And the most likely thing that your company ends up being is like, you have no idea what that is. Like it's literally useless to like sit and think. It's like way more practical. Just like go. And it can be actually as simple as like having a conversation with someone slightly related or adjacent is a great first step.
Yeah, like research, market research.
Yeah. Literally think about it a little bit.
Yeah.
Wait, I love that. That's actually great. Like,
I like try and stop myself from being irritated, but I'm like, there's so many other questions you could ask.
No, I get that question too. I don't think I've ever answered it. I'm like, I think I'm just like, I don't really know. Like, because I feel like, oh, maybe like I don't know the right answer, but I've built many things before. And clearly the reason why I think I don't have the answer is because every single time it looked entirely different.
Yeah.
If I know, I'm definitely going to start like other companies in the future for sure. And I'm not worried like, oh, like I won't know how to do it. I'm like, I know I won't know how to do it, and it's like, that's actually the exciting part of entrepreneurship.
That's the fun is like, you're like, okay, never done this before.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah. And I don't think people who don't thrive in ambiguity should be entrepreneurs, generally. Like this is like, I just don't think like everyone needs to be an entrepreneur. Like I do think that if you're someone that needs structure and you need like more of those like guidebooks for your life, there are so many other places you can thrive, not entrepreneurship.
And I think it's because like the reason that lots more people want to do it now, outside of like obviously like claiming a bit more autonomy over our time and our days, is that it's just been so glamorized. Like Silicon Valley and entrepreneur, like starting companies is really like become this like thing that like is glamorous, and it's just not like at all. Like I'm deeply exhausted on a level, like on a cellular level, that I don't think it will take me years to not be tired. But so like, but like, I don't care. I'm like, this is fun. I'm like, so like,
it's worth it.
Happy that like my hard work has paid off, but also like grateful that I get to do it. That I'm like, sure, I'm tired, but whatever. Like, if it works, it'll be amazing.
And I love that you said the word autonomy, which is, I think, a hilarious word.
It's not autonomy. Yeah.
There's no autonomy. No. Like, quite literally zero autonomy, because your company owns you. Your investors own you. Your employees own you. You actually have the least autonomy in your entire life will be when you have a business. And I just think it's so funny that people start businesses to literally get autonomy. It's just like paradoxical to me.
Yeah.
I think there is something actually so freeing about a 9-to-5 job. You know what? Because after 5 p.m., you can literally pretend it doesn't even exist in your life. Like, it's not even part of your reality. And there will be nothing negative that happens in your life. And you can wake up the next day and then tune back into your little simulation and then exit when you want. And that's just like, that is a deep privilege, actually, to be able to enter and exit things like this in your life, but still get that paycheck and still have that financial stability. Like, a job is a privilege. Yeah. We just like, don't talk about that. Yeah. Everyone's just complaining about jobs.
I also like don't really, I don't know. My mum and my sister both run their own companies as well. And my dad is a CFO and has always worked in like larger organizations. And he's like, what? Like, what's happened here? Like, how is this like, why are you both trying to do this? He's very supportive, but he finds it quite amusing.
No, it's hilarious, and it's true. Like, as a parent, you want these things of stability, and you don't want your kids to be in chaotic messes, and like, you don't want your kids to be tired on a cellular level. Yeah. So I totally,
but in a fun way.
Yeah. In a fun way. Oh my God, I'm so dead. What would you say is the most rewarding part of your entrepreneurship journey so far?
Our community, the people in the app that, like, anytime someone sends a message being like, I just want to say thank you so much. I've been going through this thing and people gave me amazing answers. I'm like, actually, like, I'm like feeling a bit emotional right now. I'm like, it kind of makes me want to cry.
As it should.
Because
release it.
But it is also, it's one of those things where, because you are so tired on a cellular level, the word that I cannot say, as soon as, like, if people actually, you're like, oh my God, I did something for one, like, even if it's just one person, I'm like, I feel great that one person found what they needed. And obviously I want tens of millions of people to also find what they need. But those little moments and seeing the connections formed amongst the community and people becoming friends, or like, I don't know, just like building true community is like very motivating.
Yeah. I mean, let's be real. If you're not actually seeing the impact of what you're building, it's going to be way too hard to show up the next day. Like, it's really important. And like, you're obviously, your app is growing so fast, your company's growing so fast because it is genuinely helping women and actually genuinely improving their lives, and men too. Soon, it seems like there are men on your app too.
Yeah, there are a few. Not many.
For now.
They get removed if they're badly behaved.
Yeah.
Well, anyone gets removed if they're badly behaved.
As they should.
Mm.
What has been the most surprising thing that you've learned about yourself once you started Diem?
I feel like I learn something new most weeks. I guess I'd never really like seen myself as like someone who could like inspire a vision kind of thing. And I've learned like from our employees or from pitching investors that that's something that I'm good at, which is kind of a cool thing to think about or to know that you're good at. I think another thing is it's just like reinforced how much I love learning. Like I love like all of the people that we work for us or all of our advisors, just like being able to ask them questions or being able to learn by what they're doing. And like our head of design is phenomenal. And then like every time I watch her design in Figma, I'm like, wow. And just like being able to see that stuff, I think is really cool. So yeah, I'd say both like learning how to pitch and then establishing both to investors or to like prospective employees or just like on podcasts, like learning that is a really cool thing to know that I've become better at. And then, yeah, the other is just how much I love learning.
I love that. And who would you say are your biggest mentors or supporters for you through this journey? Oh
my God, I have so many. I would say a lot of my like peer mentors, like founder friends are huge. So like 3 off the top of my head, Miri from Landing, Argia from Avia, and then Tracy from Block Party. I really love learning from all of them and just like having a sounding board to have honest conversations. And then some of our investors as well really appreciate their mentorship and guidance. And I have a phenomenal executive coach. He's called Mike, and I don't know, he's the best.
Oh my God. The fact that every woman you named is someone that I am personally inspired by, like, I'm like, that just makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Of course, there are these amazing, inspiring women in the world who are awesome. Well, if you go back in time and tell your younger self some advice, what would you tell her?
I would tell it, it's something that I just like tell most girls, is like, stop worrying about what you look like or what boys think of you. Like, I think that it's just like teen girls are raised to like, and we see it in Diem, like the majority of conversations or like a certainly large percentage of them are around those topics, especially when the user is teenage, like teenage years, can't talk. So yeah, just stop, like go hang out with your friends, like learn stuff, like do hobbies, like it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's what really shapes your character and really gets you places in life.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming.